All right, welcome back. We have our image of Stinky Lobster open. We have our fish image open. We have our toolbar. And double click on it to make it side by side. We have our history panel, adjustment panel, and our layer panel. So I'm going to drag this out over here for a second and reposition it, make it a little bigger. So we're going to do some digital painting. And the first thing I'd like to do is show you how to set up layers. Layers are the way we're going to do everything in Photoshop. A lot of intro classes would just have you start to paint directly on the photograph. The thing is, if you alter this background layer, you don't have any place to go back to. So these pixels on the background layer, I never touch. You can see that the background layer is italicized and locked. So for me, this layer, I keep, as clean and perfect as possible. Thank you, Camtasia. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do first thing first is duplicate this. I can right-click, duplicate layer, or it's blue and selected. I can drag it down to this little icon next to the little trash can, which will duplicate it, make a new from the selected item. Now I turn off the eyeball. I don't even want to know this layer is here. That's like my backup plan. So I have my background copy, which is going to make the file larger, but we don't have to worry too much about that because we have a ton of hard drive space. Now, we need 3 blank layers above that. So I can go here to create a new layer. 1, 2, 3. You want to name all of your layers. Even in the beginning, people get lazy and they're like, oh, I'm not going to name them. Well, when your files are going to start to have 15, 20 layers, it's going to be very hard to keep things organized. So the first layer is going to be called Under Painting or Big Shapes. All right. And guess what we're going to put on that layer?
Big shapes.
Big shapes, exactly. And this one will be called Intermediate. And I think this is where you add detail. Okay. Now change the name of the layer. Don't just double click on the layer because that opens up your layer style options. That can get frustrating. Click where it says Layer 3 and it will highlight that field blue. And here, this will be detail. There you go. So we've got 5 layers, and this is how I would like exercise 1 set up. All right. We have our background copy, which is locked and italicized. You get a background copy with each file that you open up. That we're going to leave alone. We've copied our background, so we have background copy, and that's what we're going to use as a source. We have 3 blank layers, nothing on those yet. 1 for underpainting, which is just defining the big shapes. 1 for intermediate, where you start to add the medium shapes and add detail. And the third is where that you will define light sources and add the little details that are going to make a difference, like maybe some of these tear marks and some of the highlights on his little fin here and on his eyes. Okay? All right. Any questions about that so far? No? We're good? All right. Let's kind of just jump right into it. So you might think, hey, we're just going to grab the brush and we're going to paint. But we're not going to grab the brush. We're going to grab the mixer brush, and let me show you why. If you hit I, you can sample a color and it will appear as your foreground color. And then if you hit B, it will bring you back to the normal brush. I'm going to use Command plus to zoom in, hold down the space bar, which changes any tool to the hand, and then kind of move his little head around. And if I use a normal brush, it just paints on top of the image, right? There's no blending. It doesn't know to change color. It doesn't take in any consideration from these pixels below. You can see it's just solid color. So the brush is not the tool we want to use for this. Now I could undo, or I can go to the history panel and decide where I liked it. So I liked it up near name change, and I'd love to get rid of the brush tool here and the brush tool here. You don't even need to drag them to the trash. Just click above where the mistake was made. So if I did several of these, woohoo, hey, okay, all I need to do is say, okay, I don't want any of these brushes. So I'm going to go up to the little, the history here, where name change was good, and it gets rid of all the brush tools for me. So we're not going to use that brush tool. We're going to use the mixer brush tool. So you want to make sure that you have that distinction. And before we go too much further, I need to File, Save As. You will save everything with your last name, underscore, EX1, and as a Photoshop document. It's the top option. You have a couple other Photoshop things that can be confusing, but I want this Photoshop document. Make sure that layers is selected because as you can see, we have many layers. And also that there is only one period in your name, right? .psd. You want to make sure that, that there's only one period because if you have Katerina.ex1.psd, the computer will try and open a program that will open .ex1.psd, right? So naming conventions are very important. Please don't use spaces, use underscores, and don't use periods except for the one in front of the extension. And then hit save, and you're good to go. So we've made that distinction that where we want to be is with the mixer brush tool. We have saved our file. We've got our layers set up, right? If you accidentally made one too many layers, all you have to do is grab that extra, drag it down to the trash, okay? And I think we're ready to go. So let's save this again, Command S, and talk about the mixer brush.